Did you become a person of interest to the FBI during or after the filming? To be honest, I really don't know, and that's, I suppose, the issue, particularly around surveillance. The surveyors always tend to know a lot more about the surveyed than we know about them. So I really don't know, but of course, if your phone goes a bit funny or something happens to your computer, you immediately assume someone is watching you. And I do think these days we have to assume we are all under surveillance. A lot of people say, well, I've got nothing to hide, but my personal opinion is that we've all got something to hide, and one of the insidious aspects of surveillance is it makes you self-censor. So, I might not so willingly express some of my political beliefs or my business dealings or aspects of my family life if I feel that someone might be listening or watching or potentially doing so. Moby is in the film. How did you manage to wrangle that, and what was he like? Well, Moby is a pretty interesting musician. I've always liked his music, and I think he has adapted in interesting ways to the new online distribution world, so I wanted to talk to him. He was very charming, he was very busy, so it wasn't super easy to get hold of him, but he graciously granted us half an hour, and we filmed him in a very pleasant space, which was kind of a converted garage. And he was thoughtful and engaging and very pleasant, so that was fun. Okay, question 3. As a New Zealander, do you feel like you have more freedom to tell stories over other countries? Well, certainly New Zealand I would see pretty much the same as what I would call other Western-style democracies, where we are pretty free to express our opinions up to a point. I think one difference today is there's a lot more social media response, so you might have to deal with perspectives from all different angles, which is something that's pretty new. But obviously it's much easier in these countries than many other countries, and I take my hat off to the journalists and documentary filmmakers who struggle to cover controversial issues in countries where it's not easy to explore these issues. How did you meet Kim.com and convince him that you were the right person to tell the story? You'd have to ask him these days if he thinks I was the right person to tell his story. But Kim always knew the film had to be independent and had to be seen to be independent for it to be a viable film. Otherwise it wouldn't be really taken as a kind of credible representation, I think. But we approached him when he was reasonably public. He was on the road during the internet mana period, and we talked to him about what we intended to do. I think as the years passed, and it was several years of filming, he realized the film was going to be made anyway, and because his story is in what we would call the public domain, we would have gone ahead without him, although I was always very keen, of course, to get an interview. So I think in the end we got the interview. He must have decided it was worth becoming involved and expressing his side of the story. So I'm very pleased that he did that, but it did take us quite some time. If you could make a documentary about anyone, dead or alive, who would it be? Well, maybe because I'm sitting here in Argentina, I've been thinking a lot about Che Guevara. In fact, last night over huge steaks and a lot of red wine, we were discussing Che's legacy again. So that's a pretty hard question to answer, but that would be today's answer, I think.